I'm Mary, 38, female, originally from Colombia. I'm going to tell you a story about my toxic ex-husband. I was 23, tired of my toxic family drama, and dreaming of a better life. So I hopped on a plane and touched down in the Lone Star State. Damn, the heat hit me like a brick wall. It was like walking into an oven, but hey, at least it wasn't my family's drama. Now, I didn't exactly roll into Texas with a suitcase full of cash. Nope, I ended up in a women's shelter for a bit. Let me tell you, those ladies were a lively bunch. We had everything from aspiring poets to DIY beauty experts. Living there was like being part of a quirky sitcom minus the laugh track. But you know what? I loved every minute of it. We'd swap stories, share our dreams, and heck, we even had a makeshift karaoke night. It was like finding a little family away from home. All right, buckle up because this part of the story is straight out of a romance movie. There I was, minding my own business in the shelter one day, waiting in line for some mystery casserole or whatever they were serving that day. And then in walks Levi. Normally, people coming into the shelter was no big deal. We got social workers, volunteers, and folks wanting to donate blankets or canned goods. The place was just a revolving door for all sorts of people. But when I saw Levi, y'all, it's like my heart hit the floor. I mean, who invited Prince Charming to the homeless shelter? I sure didn't. This guy was drop-dead gorgeous, and I was just standing there with my tray thinking, what in the world is he doing here? I'm not going to lie, he looked like he stepped out of a GQ magazine. Our eyes locked, and he caught me staring like a deer in headlights. But instead of being weirded out, he grinned like he just won the lottery and made his way over to me. My English at the time was, let's say, a work in progress, but Levy didn't seem to mind. He was patient, kind, and genuinely interested in getting to know me. He drops this bombshell, calling me beautiful, saying a girl like me shouldn't be in a place like this. I was thinking, you got that right, Levi, but I played it cool. Turns out this handsome fellow was one of the social workers assigned to help out. There were a lot of the ladies who were dealing with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, so he decided to take on extra shifts just to help out a bit more. But after a couple of weeks, he told me the real reason he wanted to take on extra shifts. To be honest, Mary, I wanted to see more of you. Really, yeah, it's crazy to say it out loud, but you make me feel really good, and I want to see more of you. Let me tell you, that man had me blushing more than a schoolgirl with a crush. Fast forward a few months, and it was pretty obvious to everyone at the Women's Center that Levi and I were basically a thing. We didn't slap any labels on it, but we weren't scared of hiding it either. We just rolled with it. Levi just got me, you know. He made me feel seen and heard in a way nobody else ever had. Living in the shelter was like being in a fishbowl. Some folks were happy for us, cheering us on like we were a real-life fairy tale. Others were a mix of jealous and bitter, and then there were the ones who simply didn't care. But hey, I was happy, and that's what mattered. After a while, Levi told me he had something to tell me. What is it, Levi? I want you to move in with me. Please say yes. Did I hear that right? He wanted me to leave the shelter and be with him. That was insane. I'll admit, I hesitated for a hot minute. Moving in with a guy I'd known for less than a year sounded crazy, but life's short, right? So I thought, why not? I took the leap. Levi and I moved into our little love nest, and let me tell you, it felt so freeing. From a women's shelter to an actual home, talk about moving up in the world, just like I always wanted. And just when I thought life couldn't get any better, Levi pulled out all the stops. He goes down on one knee and proposes on New Year's Day, right when the countdown hits 0. Romantic as all get out, right? That man lifted me off my feet and took me straight to cloud 9. He was always pampering me, buying me gifts, telling me how much he loved me, how much he cared. I mean, who needs a fairy tale when you've got Levy, right? It was like living in a constant state of bliss, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Life was good. Life was perfect. So after riding that honeymoon phase high, Levy drops a bomb on me. 3 months into our wedded bliss, he came up to me and said, "Hey babe, there's something I want to tell you. I want you to meet my friends. I think it's time." Now you might be scratching your head, thinking, how did you not know about his friends this whole time? Well, folks, it's a little more complicated than it seems. See, Levi always told me he didn't really have friends, that his only buddies were his coworkers, whom I knew from the shelter. But out of the blue, he springs these dinner plans with some people who were his old school buddies. And get this, they were big shots. Businessmen, lawyers, not exactly the usual crowd for a social worker. Why didn't you tell me about these fancy-ass friends of yours? What am I even supposed to wear? Don't worry, babe. I got you covered. But babe, these people are big shots. You said it yourself. I'm going to need an extra fancy dress or something. Now imagine my surprise when Levi continues to spill the tea. On top of not telling me about his friends, he also didn't tell me about his net worth. Turns out he was not just a social worker because he's a good dude. No, he comes from a wealthy family. Social work was just a thing he did on the side because apparently he loved it. That's why he could afford all those fancy gifts he'd been showering me with. I got to admit, I was hurt. I mean, the man lied about his identity and kept me from meeting his real friends. It felt iffy, you know. But then I tried to be reasonable. Love makes you do crazy things, right? I figured maybe he was just caught up in the whirlwind of our fast-paced life, and it was better late than never. So we went to this fancy dinner with these high flyers, and they're talking about stocks, real estate, and all sorts of things. I'm just nodding along. I kept trying to jump into the conversation, but no one was letting me speak, including Levi. He would just drone on and on about how beautiful and exotic I was. And his friends would also ogle at me. I just felt like a fish out of water. Looking back, I should have known that all of these were red flags. Not being honest with me, calling me exotic, letting his friends eye me like that, it was a lot to take in. But at the time, I would ignore these uneasy feelings and just keep smiling. Love, as they say, can make you forgive a whole bunch of mess. Fast forward a couple of years, and it's like time was on fast forward. All the love that once had us floating on cloud 9 was slowly fizzling out like a soda left open for too long. I was trying to rekindle our connection. Don't get me wrong, I did my part as a wife and a friend. But Levy, man, he was always preoccupied with everything but me. I felt abandoned, just like back in Colombia. I wondered how I'd got myself into this mess. It was beyond frustrating being with him. Every attempt to get his attention felt like talking to a brick wall. But oh, when we go out together, it was a whole different story. Levi would pull a 180, showering me with kisses and showing me off to his friends like I was some trophy wife. Just look at her, isn't she gorgeous? Public displays of affection, we had that down. Everyone must have thought that we had the healthiest relationship ever. But private conversations, yeah, there were barely any of those anymore. Destiny's Child's "Say My Name" became my anthem because, let's be real, it was like I was living that song. He only seemed to love me in public, and in private, it was crickets. Honestly, the thought of leaving crossed my mind more than once. But how? How could I? I had no job, no money, nada. Levi was all I knew in America, and I felt trapped. It was like being caught in a web with no way out. I was living that love story, but without the happily ever after part. Things had gone on like this for ages, and I was getting so fed up with him. I had gotten so used to his absence. So I found myself spending time with some peanuts and the couch, with some good shows. There I was, chilling on the couch, watching some Netflix, minding my own business as usual, when my phone rang. It was Leve. I was feeling a bit giddy. I thought that he would take me out or call me and tell me what a fool he's been for treating me like a roach. "Hey, babe." "Mary, listen, I don't have much time." "What's wrong?" "I need you to come to the bar right now." This got me excited. You see, earlier in the night, before he left to go drinking with his buddies, I had asked if I could tag along. He said he didn't want me going there. Not because it would be too rowdy, not because it would be too much for me to handle, but because, according to him, I'd be cramping his style. Can you imagine? The man who was so obsessed with showing off his exotic and curvy Colombian woman was now afraid that I'd be cramping his style. We got into a little argument about it, and he kind of revealed how he's always felt about me, just as some piece of arm candy to show off to his friends. This crushed me. I didn't want to yell or scream or fight, because again, without him, I had nothing. I had stupidly placed all my bets on this man, and now I felt like I was trapped. So you can understand why I felt a bit hopeful when he invited me to the bar. I thought that he finally wanted to hang out with me. "You want me to come?" "Really?" "Yeah, babe, quickly. I'll send you the location. Just hurry." "Okay, what are we going to do when I get there?" "That doesn't matter. Just come quickly. My friends want to see you." "Oh yeah, so what time will you get here?" "You know, Levi, I'm sick of you fetishizing me." "What? What the hell are you talking about? You always parade me around your friends like I'm some doll." "I'm not coming. Mary, I swear to God." "You didn't want me to come in the first place, right? So I'm going to continue watching my show. Have a nice night." We got into it, a real knockdown, drag-out argument. Words were flying, and I wasn't holding back. It's like, make up your mind, Levi. I felt like a puppet, and he was pulling all the strings. I was done being a showpiece for his fancy friends. It was time for him to get a reality check, and let me tell you, that argument was the tipping point. But call me stupid or crazy. Maybe I'm both, but I gave in. Levi started showering me with all these words and promises on how he was going to do better, telling me he was sorry for everything he had done, and that he needed me right now. So what did I do? I went up to get dressed and headed out to the sports bar he was talking about. I got into my car and made my way to his location. The streets were pretty empty 'cause it was late at night, so I was cruising down the highway, trying to shake off that argument with Leva and remain hopeful for the change he promised to give me. But life, being the tricky thing it is, decided to shake things up for me. There was this lunatic drunk driver on the road who was swerving and honking like crazy, making us all anxious. To avoid a disaster, I ended up swerving off the road, crashing into the side of the road. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in the hospital, and there was Levi, scowling like it was his job. "Good, you're up." He sounded pissed and annoyed. Not a single indication of concern on his face. Go figure. When I took a good look around, I saw his drinking buddies in the room, but this time they weren't ogling me like before. Nope, they were looking at me with disinterest or downright disgust. Complete 180 from their earlier stares. Confused as heck, I asked Levi what happened. Instead of giving me a straight answer, he starts yelling at me, accusing me of driving like a maniac and that I ruined everything. The thing is, I didn't remember much at the time. I tried explaining that to him, telling him that the last thing I remember was driving on the highway, but he wasn't having it. His friends, one by one, started leaving without so much as a "get well soon," or anything that showed that they gave a damn. Levi then got up close and personal. "You're pathetic, Mary." And before I could even react or ask him more questions, he walked out, leaving me sobbing alone in the hospital. I cried myself to sleep, waking up the next morning to grab my phone, which was by my bedside. Just when I was about to call Levi or call someone or just check what day it was, I was met with a beast in the reflection. Yep, I had a busted, swollen face with a huge ass scar from my forehead to my cheek. I tried touching it, praying it wasn't real, hoping that this was just some scary-ass nightmare, but the pain was confirmation enough that it was all too real. I searched around the room for a mirror, and I saw one in the corner. I shifted up on my elbows to get a better look at myself, and sure enough, staring right back at me was what I saw in the phone. A beast I couldn't even recognize myself. I was hideous and scarred. Confusion took over, and the tears just kept coming. That's when the doctor walked in, saw how upset I was, and decided to sit down, trying to calm me down. Life had taken a sharp turn, and I was lost in a maze of pain and betrayal. The doctor laid it all out for me, explaining how I got into this accident. But when I asked about Levi, he looked upset and handed me an envelope, saying he'd give me some privacy to read it once he left. I tore that thing open, and there it was, a letter from Levi saying all sorts of crazy stuff. "Mary, I'm sure you know that it was bound to come to this. I don't love you anymore. I don't think that this is going anywhere, and I'm sure you feel it too. So that's why I have to release you with love. I have to let you go because I need you to do better for yourself, and I need to do better for me too. I can't possibly imagine a life with you after this accident. It scared us both." Wow, really? Because last time I checked, I was the one with scars. No one would want to wake up next to a scary face every morning. It would drive the strongest man insane. So that's why I want a divorce. We both deserve better. He went on to say he'd graciously cover my medical bills because he's just such a kind soul. Oh, and tucked in there with divorce papers, too. I lost it. I knocked down the water bottles beside me and threw my phone across the room. I was mad, upset, and feeling a pain I'd never known. This was the man who couldn't take his eyes off me when we first met, and now he wanted nothing to do with me. The Psalm CS must have been real loud because the doctor came back in. He did his best to console me, saying he had a feeling the letter wasn't good news. He called Levi and his friends a bunch of ogres, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. The rest of the day was a blur of tears, and trying to wrap my head around what the heck my life was going to look like from here on out. It felt like the ground had been pulled from under me, and I was left free falling into the unknown. So after dragging myself through the mess of the divorce with Levi and healing up in the hospital, I felt like I was back to square one, hopeless, lost, and alone. The idea of going back to the shelter crossed my mind, but life had a surprise waiting for me. The doctor who took care of me came through like a guardian angel. He offered me his guest house and suggested I work at his niece's cafe to help pay him back. It was a lifeline, and I grabbed it. Before I knew it, I was back on my feet, smiling, healing, laughing again. The accident, even Levi, started to feel like a distant memory. Fast forward 2 years, and there I am, not slinging lats as a barista, but managing a quaint little cafe. You heard that right. I was now the manager of this place. I guess all those years of selling tamales in areas on the busy streets of Colombia paid off. Life had a funny way of turning around. And then out of the blue, I saw Levi, beard all graying, walking in with someone who looked like she barely finished high school. They were giggling about something, and for a second, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But as he approached the counter, I knew for sure that it was my good-for-nothing ex-husband. I couldn't believe my eyes. Here I was hustling and building my life, and he waltzed in like it's just another day. It hit me, though, that I'd come a long way from the mess he left me in. I held my head high, readying myself for this showdown. Oh, they'd love to meet you. I've shown them your pictures, and they said you're gorgeous. Hi, how may I assist you today? Hi, can we do a wait? Mary. I'm sorry. Mary, it's you. Do I know you? Yes, I was playing dumb. I wasn't about to let that clown know that I knew it was him. I wanted to bruise his ego a bit, and it seemed to work because he frowned when I said, "That it's me, Levi." Oh, I could barely recognize you. Your scar, it's gone. Yep, that's what some good old-fashioned aloe vera and shea butter can do to you. And the melanin doesn't hurt either. But I mean, it's still visible in the right light. You look, wow. His date started looking uncomfortable, so I turned to her and said, "Hey, sweetheart, I'm sure you won't believe me when I say this, but that feeling you're feeling right now, the thing that's telling you to run for the hills, you better listen to that. Otherwise, he'll draw you in with all these fake promises and lies. Hey, don't talk to her like that. Don't listen to her, baby. She's out of her mind. I don't even know this woman." Oh yeah? Then how did you remember my name, Jackass? The girl asked me who I was, and I told her that I was his ex-wife. She didn't seem to like that answer too much because she hit him, and then stormed out of the cafe. What the hell was that for? For all the years I put up with your crap. You're lucky I'm not calling the cops. Oh, calm down. She's 19 years old, so it's legal. It's still sick, Levi. I'm shocked, but honestly, I'm not surprised. Anyway, it's no matter. I see you're looking good, really good. I'm going to have to stop you right there, buddy. I'm not interested. What? Why not? Gee, let's see. Maybe it's because you left me when I needed it the most. Maybe it's because for the entirety of our marriage you treated me like I was some shiny toy you only took out to show off to your friends. Maybe it's because you're a scumbag who is sleeping with 19-year-olds. Maybe it's because... All right, I get it. Sheesh, Mary. That was the old me. I was a child back then. That's funny because just 5 seconds ago, your girlfriend bolted out of here. That was just a lapse in my judgment. I haven't stopped thinking about you. Good, I hope you continue to think about me. I hope that every waking moment you're haunted by the things you did to me. I hope you wake up with panic attacks. I hope you never feel any type of peace because you don't deserve it. You're a weak, pathetic, sick man. I'm not even sure if Jesus himself can save you. You're hopeless. You're worthless. You're the one who's pathetic. Levi looked like he wanted to cry. All of my patrons were looking at him with disgust, as I may or may not have shared my story a couple of times already. Levi started stammering and stuttering, trying to come up with an excuse, but all I did was stare at him silently, letting him know that there was nothing he could do or say to me to make me change my mind and get back with him. He eventually left, his shoulders all slumped, muttering something to himself, and I finally felt like I could breathe. Finally, I got to see the look on his face when he realized just how badly he messed up with me. Sometimes the devil is in the details, and I know that he's tormented every day, wondering what to do to get me back. But he should know that that is never, ever going to happen.